Hello and welcome to America's Veterans. My name is Len Saratsky and I will be your host. World War I was mostly fought in trenches. First one side moved forward, then the other. The war had started in 1913 and the various sides were virtually at a stalemate. The United States entered the war in 1917 and the war to end all wars finally came to an end in 1918. All combatants agreed to an armistice, which was signed at 11 a.m. on November 11, 1918. All was quiet on the Western Front. This year is rather unique because the remembrance could be called 11-11-11-11. In 1919, President Woodrow Wilson asked all Americans to remember those who fought in that great war. At precisely 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month, Americans stopped whatever they were doing and faced east for 1 minute. This action represented a prayer of remembrance for those 53,500 who were killed in hostile action. Congress made Armistice Day a legal holiday in 1938. And in 1954, President Eisenhower changed the name from Armistice Day to Veterans Day in remembrance of all veterans from all wars. And that is the way that Veterans Day remains today. Every year in small towns and cities across our nation, men, women, and children gather to remember our veterans. They recognize clearly that any greatness due America is there only because of our veterans. Our guest today will share with us some of the plans for our coming Veterans Day celebration. Let's meet them now. Ta-da! And we have 4 guests here. And shall I introduce? I'll tell you what. I'll have you introduce yourselves, and I won't mispronounce your names. You know, I'm a smart guy. So, Mayor.
I'm Shirley Groover Bryant, and I'm Mayor of the City of Palmetto.
Thank you, sir.
Sam Crockett, Tropicana.
Okay, and you did say Tropicana.
Tropicana.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Sir?
Yes, Lynn. My name is Tony Sofarelli. I'm a process engineer at the Tropicana plant in Bradenton. I'm here representing the hundreds of veterans that are employed at the Tropicana plant.
Wow. Okay. And I know you, don't I?
Yeah. You know what? Don Courtney, Chairman of Manatee County Veterans Council. How you doing, Lynn?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm glad you all came here today, and we have a Veterans Day coming up, and our purpose now is to share with our audience something about what you're doing in Palmetto. And we will, Don, am I correct? We will not be having Veterans Day at Veterans Memorial Park.
No, we won't. We will be using the parks over in Palmetto.
Right.
Thanks to the gracious host, the mayor, and the city of Palmetto.
Yeah.
And we've got it set up. The parade will start at 10 a.m. on 13th Avenue near the fairgrounds. We can't use the fairgrounds as staging this year because of a dog show going on, so we use 13th Avenue outside it. And then they will line up and go to 15th Street and then turn west onto 10th Avenue and march straight down 10th Avenue to Sutton Lamb Park, where it'll dismantle, and then at 11 o'clock we will start the Veterans Day service.
Okay. Mayor, you got a great job. I mean, I think you know that, and we know that. Could you tell us, who are you?
Well, I'm Shirley, and I'm the mayor of the city of Palmetto, and it is a great job. Yeah. This is one of the highlights, being able to be just, in my way, a small part of honoring our veterans, because we have so much to be thankful for that's attributed to them. Mm-hmm. So this will be our third year to have the parade back in Palmetto, and we're so delighted. And we've got a lot of sponsors that have come on board this year to help us, because we have some wonderful speakers, but a lot of the focus from my viewpoint is to make sure that we have a lot of the youth there so that they learn about Veterans Day, those that haven't had a full knowledge of it and an awareness and an appreciation of the gifts that they've gotten from the veterans. And so we have a lot of events for the young people that are going to be taking place all day in the park. And we're going to have some wonderful speakers, and I'll let Don Courtney talk about that, because I'm very pleased with the selection that they have this year.
Okay,
So.
now I think I heard you say all day.
Well, it'll start at 10 o'clock, the parade, and then the ceremony in the park will be at 11 o'clock, and I think it'll run until 2, if I'm correct.
Somewhere along in there, yeah, because we have, besides, like you said, besides the parade and the service, after that, we want the families to stay around instead of just go home like we've done in the past. So we're going to have a car show over in Lamb Park. The Manatee concert band will be there to play music before and after the service. We'll have a bounce house and face painting and things for the children. VFW 2488 is going to be having a cookout right at the opposite side of Lamb Park. So we're going to have a lot of different activities for, hopefully, to keep everybody there. And our main guest speaker will be Commander Brad Smith, which some of you know is was a 7-year POW in Vietnam, Hanoi Hotel and a few other places. We just found out on the way over here that Congressman Vern Buchanan will be there to say a few words also. Mr. Crockett here is our Grand Marshal, and we will also name the Veteran of the Year and the Auxiliary Member of Manatee County for the year.
Well, I want to hear from Sam Crockett.
There you go.
Yeah, the Grand Marshal.
Yes. Someone on the job, we just formed a group, what we call an ERG, Employee Resource Group, recently, Valor, which is recognized through the corporate structure, and we're just getting formed here. So Tony's the president of that ERG, and they were coming up with some things. So one day I got a call from one of the guys at work to fill out some paperwork, and I thought, well, okay, it's for Valor, you know. And I submitted it, and I just thought all the veterans were doing this, and I guess that's true. And then one day they called me up and said, we need you to come over to a meeting. And I got to the meeting, and they said, well, we did this, this, and this, and we'd like for you to be the Grand Marshal. And I was
Congratulations.
like, what?
Yeah.
And I was surprised, and I'm still trying to grasp it, and I understand it's a great honor.
Yeah.
And I'm not really good with recognition, you know. I do my thing and then I scurry away, whatever it is. So if you'll pardon me if I appear a little shy, because I am. So, but
You're a shy guy.
I have to say though, Don, when his bio was being read, and one of the, I can't recall who was sitting by me, but they leaned over and they said, "Is that one person?" So he has a quite impressive biography, and we're just all delighted that Sam's going to be the Grand Marshal this year.
Tell us, I've not heard your biography. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Sure.
Well, I started out in 1970. There was during the draft, so I did my 2 years active duty, and because of Vietnam, we got a 6-month drop. And I came home and I thought, well, I'm done with that. And, you know, got married, started kids, going to school, got a job. And I got this registered letter in the mail one day. And I went down to the post office and picked it up. And I opened it, and it was from the federal government, and it said, you've got 30 days to join the reserves or the National Guard, or we'll reactivate you for the duration of your obligation, which was 6 years at the time. So I quickly found a reserve unit, and I joined, and I thought, well, I'll get these 4 years out of the way, and then I'm done. And when you get into it and you're meeting people from all over, and it's like being active duty. You develop a camaraderie, and then you find out it's just not really a part-time job, and it's still about protecting the country, and you can't rely on the active duty. Once you get into the reserve, the National Guard component, you understand that you're just another cog in the wheel, and that you're a very important part. So I wound up overstaying my initial obligation, and I completed the entire process with 28 years, and with a lot of friendships, travels all over the country, and overseas, even as a reservist. And you learn that it's training those behind you. You know, it's like, you know, and it's very important. So you learn that it's not about me, it's about all of us. And that was my greatest takeaway from working with other people, and having somebody come back and say, you know, thanks for shedding this.
And then at some point, you started to work at Tropicana?
Mm-hmm. I started to work there in 1980. And I've been there for 31 years now. It's a whole different operation. When I started, just like the military is,
sure,
quite different now. It was all manual type operation. Everything you did by hand, now you just punch a button. You know, so it's pretty much a one-fingered operation. You know? So,
well, that's the way we keep the price down.
Yes.
Yes.
Eventually, you know, there was. I read once in a trade magazine that eventually technology wants to get to the point where a factory is going to be run by one dog and one man, and the man is there to feed the dog. The dog is there to bite the man if he touches anything.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Now, we haven't heard from Tony. I'm amazed that he has sat quietly by for all this time. Tony, tell us a little bit about yourself, would you?
No problem.
Please.
Employee at the Tropicana Bradenton site. This employee resource group, like we discussed, Valor, was founded last year. The purpose was to recognize, appreciate, and support veterans and their family members of all of our PepsiCo sites nationwide. So I stepped up to the plate to be the leader, myself and Eric Fitzgerald as the co-leader. And when we were presented with the opportunity to be the 5-star sponsor for the Veterans Day Parade, we couldn't pass it up. So we'll be going through the parade, passing out juice, getting our name out there, and really trying to give back to the veterans. Myself started out after college working for Tropicana, stayed in the reserves after my active duty time, and was called to service for Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2009. Couldn't ask for a better company to support me throughout the whole process. Sam and I were talking. We have similar stories. Sam for the first Gulf War, and my story for the Operation Iraqi Freedom. Tropicana has been there and will always be there for their veterans. So I'm very thankful.
Yeah, we really should mention the name Tropicana a few times, because people in Bradenton have probably never heard of that company. You know, big company.
Yeah, we employ, I believe it's over 1,500 at our site in Bradenton.
Yeah, yeah. And their orange juice is sold worldwide, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that's really good.
If I could say one thing about Tropicana,
go ahead.
Isn't a plug, but I grew up in I was born in Bradenton, grew up in Palmetto and on the Canal Road.
Oh my!
And you look at this plant here in Bradenton, Florida, and then you grow up and you learn that we've got the facility in Fort Pierce. But I happened to be in Germany on a military training exercise, and I picked up a carton of orange juice in the store over there, and that carton said Bradenton, Florida, and I just couldn't believe that you had a product that was actually made in this country. At the time, I was working for Tropicana, and here's Bradenton, Florida, in Frankfurt, Germany, and that was mind-blowing for me. You know.
Well, this community, or I should say Manatee County, has about 40,000 veterans, and you know, we've still got a bunch of World War II guys who we try to honor as often as we can. But of course, you had Vietnam, which was so upset about the way we treated our Vietnam soldiers when they came home. I think that was just terrible. You got a little bit better break on coming home. I think people kind of knew what you were doing, or something like that.
And I really couldn't ask for better treatment. When I was going through my pre-mobilization training, flying all over the country, people would stop me at the airport and just buy me lunch. Or I was sitting down with my wife before I left and having dinner, and the waitress just came up and said, "Your bill's taken care of." Somebody paid for it and left. So
that's right.
I really couldn't ask for better treatment from the citizens
that's
of the
nice.
United States.
Yeah. And Don, I think you were in the military too, weren't you, Don?
I was in for a couple of years,
Yeah,
yes.
I thought
Yeah,
you were.
yes.
Yeah.
Just had 30 years in, was all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
you were on our side, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Speaking about the war, though, I was in Vietnam. When I come back, I was on ROTC duty, University of Wisconsin. And speaking about the way we were treated, I felt safer in Vietnam than I did on the college campus.
Well, especially at the University
Yeah,
of
especially,
Wisconsin.
yeah, we call it Protest U.
Yeah. No, that's too bad. So then you all came together,
Right.
Because you felt like you had to do something with this, and I know, Mayor, you're kind of sitting in the driver's seat, aren't you? I mean, because all you had to do was say no, and it would have been.
You have no idea how delighted I was when I was called the first time they wanted to move it back to Palmetto. This will be our third year to have the Veterans Parade back in Palmetto. Mm-hmm. I was absolutely delighted. I have many uncles that were part of the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force.
Wow.
And also 3 of my 4 brothers were in the National Guard and had different occasions that they were called up for different things. So I'm very, very appreciative of all of our veterans, and I like for the city, we're kind of like small town USA, and we have an opportunity to shine that light maybe more easily than others. But when they wanted to come back this year, the city was really ready, willing, and able to do that. And so what we did, we sent a letter out in conjunction with Mr. Courtney to a lot of the people, the businesses in the area, and asked them if they would come on board and help us in honoring the veterans on Veterans Day. And a lot of them stepped up, and of course Tropicana, being a 5-star sponsor, we're just absolutely delighted. Yeah. But it's so appropriate that this year's event, as in the past, is going to end up in Sutton Park, which was named in honor of a Vietnam veteran, but he lost his life. Ben Sutton was a resident of Palmetto, and it was named in honor of Ben Sutton and all veterans. So in the coming year, the city is working to upgrade the entire park. So we were hoping to have more done for this year's event, but by next year, we're really going to try and upgrade it and make it just over the top. And so the parade next year, hopefully they'll ask to come back. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think smaller towns have bigger parades. It seems. When I look at the town where I once lived, Kewaskum, Wisconsin, little town, and they've got like a 2-hour parade, and I'm thinking, holy cow, where all these people come from? They don't even have that many people in the town, but they really do it.
Well, I appreciate so much the opportunity for us to come on here today, because it gives us an opportunity to get that information out, because I'll hear later on that, oh, I didn't know that was going on.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to have an excuse to not come and show their honor
Okay.
for our veterans. So I want to get the word out as much as I possibly can.
Sure. And now's the chance to talk about what's happening on that day and maybe talk about it in some detail. You know, and anyone can make a comment here. So just tell us what's happening on the 11th.
Well, like we talked about before, we've changed a little bit due to the renovations going on in the park. The gazebo where we normally participate has been torn down, so the county is loaning us their big stage that they have, which will be setting in Sutton Park facing 10th Avenue. So the parade will go right by. The audience this year is going to be across the street in the Lamb Park under tents that we have, and they will be facing 10th Street also. So the parade will come right back, split right through the middle of us. And then, like I say, we'll have the car show, bike show in the background. We'll have the band there to play music. The ROTC cadets will be there passing out water and programs and American flags to the participants. So I think Rick Kirby and Janine Winham will do the play-by-play, so to speak, as the floats go by. So we'll have it all documented and everything for everybody that doesn't recognize a particular group, then they'll be announcing who it is as the group goes by.
And I think we can give Brad a plug. I know you did say it, but sometimes that happens so fast people don't hear it.
Yeah, Brad Smith has been a long-time member of the community. When he, like I say, he 20-some years in the Navy. He was a pilot, got shot down in Vietnam, spent 7 years at POW, came back to Bradenton, and I think one of the things that he found peace in was he turned to stained glass, as some of you may know. And the old Baptist church downtown on Manatee Avenue, that was his last project. He spent a couple of years reglazing all the stained glass windows in the church. And it started out as a hobby, like a lot of things, doing his garage, then he ends up growing into a big business for himself. And
yeah, I think if you've not heard Brad Smith speak, you really need to hear him. You really do. I mean, he's I consider him to be a very good friend, but he got shot down in Vietnam, as Don said, on his 80th mission, and he thought that he could make it to the water. And if he could make it to the water, there was a good chance that Americans would pick him up, but he couldn't make it. And so he came down, and boy, it started right there. He came down, and when he kind of woke up, he saw all these gentlemen with guns pointed at his head.
Yeah, weren't their friendlies.
You know, and 7 years in a North Vietnamese/Chinese prison.
Right.
Terrible. But Brad, if there's anything that Brad can talk about, it's hope. You know, how do you stay alive? I mean, after 7 years of getting beaten and tortured and everything, and he went through all that. And while he was in there, he wrote poems, and it's a fabulous story. So getting Brad Smith as a speaker is, I think that's a good one, Don.
Yeah, he's very good for Veterans Day.
I think that's really an honor for all those that will be able to listen to him. I've sat in a huge room full of women, and you could hear a pin drop when he was speaking because his story is so riveting, and you take it with you.
Yeah.
You take it with you when you leave.
One of the things we've learned on this show, America's Veterans, is that there are tons of stories. There are so many stories, so many things that our veterans have done, and many veterans will say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it. No, I don't want to talk about it." And then I'll say to them, if you don't talk about it, no one will ever know your story.
Well, I think that's probably because most people don't want to sound like they're bragging. So you've accomplished something, you did what you had to do, and you carry that pride inside.
Yeah.
So you're somewhat reluctant to sound like, and I think that's probably the fear, is to sound like I've done something that you haven't, or you know, I'm this or I'm that, and most soldiers don't do that.
I think you're probably right, but I think I remember once I was at a dinner with a whole bunch of veterans, and we were sitting at long tables, and across from my wife and myself was another couple that were probably as old as us, which is scary. And I said to him, I said, well, would you like to talk about, you know, your service? Because I have this television show and stuff. And his wife put her arm out across him, and she said, he doesn't want to talk about his service. And I said, well, that's fine. I said, it's just no one will ever know your story. You know, it goes untold. About 5 minutes later, the gentleman's wife had to go to the restroom. As soon as she was out of that chair, this guy leaned over the table and he says, let me tell you about this. He started telling me a story. But I think that I do believe it's true, that no one will ever know your story. They won't know your part. I agree with you, Sam, about the no one wants to really brag. Well, some of us do, yeah. But I just recently I read a book, a new book on the Holocaust, and about the Americans who set those people free. And they did not, it was like story after story. These were individual stories and a collection of stories in this book. And it was almost every one of those guys said, I'm not a hero, I'm doing my job. And you think, well, wait a minute. Yeah, you might be doing your job, but you're still a hero, and especially to people who were living in camps like that and so on. Do you want to say anything about Iraq, or can you?
Just to comment on what you said, you know, not being called a hero, I think that's common for soldiers. Heroes are the ones who don't come home.
Well, that's true.
And we recognize them and their sacrifice for their families.
Yeah, and I think for me, because I'm in my undergraduate studies, I was a history major, and I've been studying history all my life. It bothers me that history is hardly taught anymore in our schools. It's very little is given over to history. We have instances all across this country, but in some particular places, that are opposed to having the flag in the schools. There's at least one town right now that is going through a suit to eliminate the Pledge of Allegiance in the school, and so on down the road. You know, I mean, it's like, wow. You don't even want to tell the story of America. I mean, what is this? You know, that our guys, especially not only the veterans, but especially the veterans, what they went through, because once you get in the military, whether you are an enlistee or if you're drafted, and of course today no one's drafted, but when you go in, you may not even know where you're going. You may have no idea of what's happening. Your commander-in-chief assigns you ultimately to go somewhere, and you do it, and you do what you're told, and you learn a discipline that's unbelievable. I think and that's kind of important too.
It's extremely
I'm sorry?
Important. When I read about things like that, no prayer, no flag, no
right.
this, no that, and I think about when I was a very young person, and no one here probably remembers this, but the Blue Angels, or what was the other one, the Air Force?
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds would fly over the Manatee River, and school got out early enough that we could we had to walk down there to observe this. Mm-hmm. But when you were growing up, as I was growing up, I didn't, I wasn't taught against it at home, and it became the norm. But now I see there's a bit of a different attitude, but then I remember the places that I went when I was in the military, and it was I did that there so that we could have these freedoms here.
Absolutely.
And even though I wasn't making or thinking political then, but I still understood what it all meant now. And it's just, it's kind of crazy that it seems like we've got this internal combat going on here for no-brainer type stuff. But I got my grandson is now in the ROTC. My oldest son was in the Marines, and my youngest son is now still serving, and he's stationed at Fort Bragg. And he's kind of wrestling with, why would he be there to defend us, but it seems like no one is fighting for us here at home, and not military people, but the country as a whole. And I think this is one of the things that you don't get into the conversation because it becomes either political or not. But my hat's off to the spouses of the military soldiers. That is the ultimate challenge, and they get no props.
Right. And I think people are frequently even afraid to put their flag out, to put out our flag. We've got flags all over the community where I live because I sell flags. But I think the American flag should be flying everywhere.
I agree with you. And Lynn, that's why it's so important for people to bring their children, young children, teenage children. They need to have them at this type of event to show them and have them listen to somebody like Commander Smith. I mean, he has a phenomenal story to share. And, like you said, a lot of these stories will be lost with them. And it's an opportunity to revive the patriotism that should be there, and the thankfulness and the appreciation. And as long as we have an opportunity to have the parade, and the Veterans Council wants to work with us, and we have sponsors like Tropicana, I hope that we continue, and it just gets bigger and better every year.
Don, how many members do you have in the council these days?
We have about 42 organizations right now, and we get probably at the meetings we get close to half of that. At the meetings, and this counts the auxiliaries, in women and men's auxiliaries also in that. So we're alive and we're functioning quite well here. And like I say, we can't thank the city of Palmetto enough for being able and agreeable to hosting the parade and everything this year.
I have to go back to Sam for a second. Sorry.
Sure.
Tony, I'm not trying to ignore you.
He deserves all the credit.
But you're Italian, so. But Sam, you went to school in Palmetto. Did you go to high school in Palmetto?
Lincoln.
You went to Lincoln, and do you know that probably maybe the single greatest show that METV ever produced was a show called
The Tunnel.
The Tunnel?
Walked that thing many days.
Fantastic.
Running up and down at football practice, that was torture. But anyway, I was going to say, thanks to you guys and Don in particular, when we think about veterans, it seems like we always think about World War I, World War II. The Korean guys get zero props. And now our veteran makeup is this young guy here. Okay, so I think it's very important that we go back to teaching the kids that to be a veteran is not to be gray. Okay, so we make this visual, if you would, of what that is, but we've got young guys now, and that young crowd is really going to grow in just a few minutes. And I guess my intent is to get involved more with the Veterans Association. Before we were having this discussion, and how do we develop the outreach, and that's what Valor is about, to communicate and let these young guys know what they're going through is not just a phase, and that someone will be there to help, because they experience a lot of things, and they think that they're in it alone, and sometimes pride won't allow you to reach out, and because there's a lot of other things that could be associated.
Tony, do you and your age mates, do you have your own social organization?
There is a organization called Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, which I'm a part of. They host various different career functions throughout the country, different support groups. Recently, I was able to get in. They have this neat thing on their website called the rucksack. Everybody that's been in the military knows what the rucksack is. All your gear goes in. Right. By simply, now you have to verify you're an Iraq or Afghanistan veteran. They give you a code. You log into that website with that code. You get a list of all these different functions and that are out there for the new Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. One that I took advantage of, $200 gift certificate to JCPenney to help veterans get suits or slacks and preparing for job interviews. They have tickets for football games, tickets for baseball games, all these different functions to help the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans.
Yeah, fresh beer.
Beer is not included, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Oh, jeez.
I think let me interrupt a second.
No, go ahead.
On what Sam said and Tony also.
Yeah.
With the Veterans Council, one of the things we're trying to do, and I don't know what the problem is, we're trying to find out where these Afghan and Iraqi veterans are and get them back into the community, and it's tough to find them. I'm not sure where they're hiding or why, or maybe it's because there's an age difference and a lot of them are still working, where a lot of us, your age, my age, we're not. So we have the time to attend meetings, but we would like to find these veterans and get in contact with them and see what the community can do to help them.
Well, I think that's almost the same thing that I was going to say, but I would have said it better, probably.
Probably.
But I know for years we tried to link up with the younger veterans. I think they wouldn't come into the social organizations that currently exist, the American Legion, for example, VFW, so on, because they were afraid that World War II guys dominated the thing, and so they don't share the same lies, I mean, it's very difficult. Very few young guys would come in. I always thought that was too bad, because we keep talking about the young guys, but they ain't so young anymore. I mean, the guys that went over in the early '90s, for cripeats, that's quite a while ago. But and in the same time now, the World War II guys are spinning down, depending on what statistics you might read, that we're losing 15 to 18,000 a day. And you think, how can you lose that many? I mean, it's because that's how old they are, and so they're turning over very, very quickly.
Jim Jones from the Bradenton Herald told me the other day, we were talking that the Vietnam vets are coming up fast. Instead of everybody talking about the World War II and the KWVA, it's going to be the Vietnam vets. It's going to be the only ones, the next large group to start losing members.
Yeah. And I think I didn't realize we were going to get into this much history of the military, but when, my dad went into the service, he went in the Army in the 1920s, and then he got out for a short time. When World War II came, he went right back in, and he loved the Pacific. This guy was crazy about the Pacific. I didn't even know him really, but he went right back in, and he stayed in until after the Korean War ended. But I think Sam said something about Korea, that Korea didn't happen.
They didn't, yeah.
It didn't happen.
I used to, when I first come off active duty, I worked for a retail company. And so you had all of these guys from that World War II and Vietnam, Korean conflict. Yeah. And you knew who served where, because there was a different attitude, and the guys that went to Korea knew they got, a bad deal. And, they just kind of live with it. But I had another guy that I worked with, and he was older than I was. Being in the military, these guys just respected me, just knowing that I was in the military, and a lot of people respected the fact that I was just nice. But sometimes you can see how the military experience can change people. And I had this one guy, he was the nicest guy. He was the nicest guy, but he was bitter. And I thought, geez, what? And we were sitting down and having coffee one day, and I found out, and it was a heartbreaker. And he was upset with the federal government because when he first went in the military, he thought it was supposed to be for 2 years. Well, he was in World War II, and he was gone for 5 years. And he lost his sweetheart. They lost communication, and that was what he was really upset about. He felt like the government didn't give him a bad deal on that. So.
Well, I think it's, I don't want to dwell on the guys who died, but there were 35,000, roughly 36,000 who died in Korea, and about 20,000 more than that who didn't come home from Vietnam, you know, but that's the way it goes. I want to, before we leave the show, I want to go over the program one more time, and Mayor, would you please give us your shot on that? What is the city of Palmetto going to offer?
The parade, the Veterans Parade, is going to start on 13th Avenue at 10 a.m. on November 11th. It'll start there at, like I said, 10 a.m. and it'll come down 15th Street and go to the south down 10th Avenue, and it'll end in Sutton Park. And there'll be events there for the children, and there'll be a car show, there'll be food, there'll be face painting, all kinds of activities. And then at 11 o'clock, we'll have the ceremony, and we'll have Vern Buchanan, Congressman Vern Buchanan will be on site, and I think he's going to give a brief talk. And also we'll have retired Commander Brad Smith, who's going to be our keynote speaker. And our five-star sponsor, of course, is Tropicana, to whom we're very thankful. And I would just say, no matter what your plans are for the rest of the day, bring your family out and join us in honoring our veterans.
Plenty of room.
There's plenty of room, plenty of parking, so there's no excuse.
Don, the program.
Yes, sir, the program. Excuse me, yeah, be a good opportunity. I want to remind all the veterans organizations to bring their color guards, bring their American flags. We want to get many American flags as we can there. We have a young high school girl, Miss Weir, is going to be singing.
Channing Ware.
Channing Weir is going to be singing this year. And like I say, we have Congressman Buchanan, we have Mr. Crockett, the Auxiliary Member of the Year, the Veteran of the Year, Commander Brad Smith, and
you won't be afraid to pray there, will you?
oh no, not at all. We have our chaplain. I forgot to mention the chaplain.
Yeah,
yes.
I know you did.
Oh yeah, we'd go anywhere without the chaplain. But it's going to be a great program for everybody, and I think it's going to be a lot more interesting this year, the way we've changed things around and the way we've adjusted the program from what we've done in the past. And like I say, again, I want to remind the Veterans Organization, bring your flags. We want to see as many American flags there as we can. Okay. Andy Hoffman from the Veterans Service Office has some small flags that we're going to be passing out to the members of the audience also.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Any other comment on the program or on the day? Tony, did you want to
you know, just to repeat again, we'll be driving through the parade, passing out our Tropicana juice, complimentary to the patrons, and you know, we've asked our internal veterans to participate in the parade, walking around passing out juice.
Do you know how many veterans you have?
You know, I don't know an exact statistic. I would estimate at least 25% or more of our employees are veterans. Would you agree with that, Sam?
Okay.
Yes.
So we're really excited. We hope this becomes an annual tradition for us, being the five-star sponsor, and I'm really thankful to our plant leadership for their sponsorship.
Sam, any closing comments? Or
I just want to say thank you, Ms. Mayor, and thank you for the invite and the opportunity to participate. Thank Tony and my other co-workers for nominating me for this opportunity to represent veterans and in the parade in Tropicana as well.
Thank you.
And Sam will be there on site, so if people would like to meet him, it's been a pleasure for us to get to meet Sam and get to know about his background.
Well, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of old, but he's a good guy.
Sam, you gonna do autographs?
We'll set him up.
And that concludes our program for today. Our deepest thanks goes to our guests, Mayor Shirley Groover Bryant, Don Courtney, Tony Soffarelli, and Sam Crockett. Thanks also goes to the terrific team at METV for making this program available to you. And most of all, we thank you, our audience, for taking precious minutes of your time to watch our show. Veterans Day is one of our most important holidays. Please show your respect for all American veterans. Remember that the freedoms you enjoy today are often gifts from those who gave their lives. Please make sure that you join in a Veterans Day celebration this year. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.